back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey, man, this time we're going to do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything's going well for you here on this Monday, the 20th day of December. We're almost there, people. We are almost there. Just, 5 more days, 4 more shopping days until the big day, until Christmas, until we can stop worrying, panicking about whether we're going to do right by our loved ones. As I said, it's the thought that matters, not the value of the gift. So please don't go over the top and saying, hell, I got my shopping done in 3 hours on Saturday night. Now, a lot of that is because I only have to shop for 4 people, 5 if you include myself. But as I said, it is the thought that matters, not the overall price of what you're spending on your loved ones. But your loved ones is something that I think is in all of our thoughts right now. Something that, not just our loved ones' happiness, but our loved ones' well-being, loved ones' safety, especially when you consider what we are going through right now, thinking that, this is going to be a holiday back to the way things were a couple of years ago, but along comes this new variant in with the COVID virus. What is it called? The Omicron? I've been trying to pronounce it all week. I thought I had it pronounced correctly this morning, and just what do you know? As I'm getting ready to start the podcast, I draw a blank on how it's pronounced. But you all know what I'm talking about, because there's nowhere you can turn right now that something is not being affected in life. I'm sure every one of us has had a friend that has been sick by this. The world of entertainment, you saw Saturday Night Live was kind of different than the normal version of it this past week. They did not have the expected guest or musical performer, and most of the crew was fearful in doing the show because of an outbreak. You see, Broadway's been shut down through the rest of the season, and this is one of their biggest weeks of the year. And of course, as it pertains to us, it's impacting the sports world once again. Through the first 14 weeks of the NFL season, they didn't have to move games around. You were hearing here and there a guy would test positive, and the team would put him on the restricted list, the reserve list for health and safety protocol when it came to COVID-19. But in the last week, we've seen an explosion. We've seen insanity break out in the NFL. I think the total I saw last week was in the first 14 weeks of the season, there were 110 total players that tested positive for COVID-19. Last week alone, there were 57 players that landed on the reserve COVID list. Hell, between Monday and Tuesday, there was somewhere between 62 and 65 players alone that landed on the reserve COVID list. And it's led to, for the first time this year, games having to be shifted around, games having to be moved around, especially when you saw 3 teams were impacted the most by this, with the Washington football team having 21 positives, the Browns having 22, and the Rams having 25. Now, the positive, I guess, if you want to call it that, is that it's created some new nights for us when it comes to watching football. Like today, we have a doubleheader when it comes to Monday Night Football, or sort of. This evening at 5 o'clock will be Browns Raiders. That was originally slated to take place on Saturday. Tomorrow, you got 2 games as Washington will play the Eagles, and Seattle will play the Rams. Both of those games were originally slated to take place yesterday, but because of precaution and because these 2 teams, quite frankly, did not have enough players ready to suit up for these games, they had to move it off of Sunday. And hell, even the Browns, they're going with their 3rd-string quarterback today, Nick Mullins, because neither Baker Mayfield or Case Keenum are going to be ready to go. And listen, it sucks that we're back in this situation. We thought we were over this. We thought this Christmas was going to be a celebration of the continued return to life. But, COVID's continuing to show us there's no schedule to it. There's no planning to it. In some ways we're making this up as we go along. And, there's going to be the people that whine and complain. There's people that from the beginning I've had a problem with that have made this all too political. And to all of them, go to hell. We're more concerned with people's health, safety, and making sure that it doesn't lead to those who can be the worst affected going into hospitals or even potentially dying, rather than your happiness and, what is an inconvenience to you. So please, let's think about the bigger picture here, people. Hell, it's even, unfortunately, it's affected the NBA as well. You look at as of Saturday, there were 84 players that had entered the health and safety protocols for the NBA this season. 68 of those have been this month. And you look at the last week, as of Friday, three out of a 4-day span, they had double digits in players that were being put in health and safety protocols, even leading to, games getting postponed because teams didn't have enough players, didn't have enough guys to suit up and go out there to field a competitive team, field, enough players, because you have to have 8. And there were teams that only had 7. I mean, it felt like every day another Brooklyn net was getting added to the list. And the beginning of this was, earlier this month, the Chicago Bulls were the first team that was really hit hard. They were that first team like 3 weeks ago that had 8 positives come out in a 2-day span. And they've started to get their players back. They're starting to get back to a little bit of normalcy. But what's going on right now is anything but normal for the NBA. You've seen the last 48 hours, 5 games have had to be postponed. 3 yesterday, 1 today, and 1 tomorrow. As for the Wizards and the the Nets. And it's led to a couple things. Now the NBA and the NBA-PA had to, come to new agreement on rules as far as additional players where, a team will be allowed to sign a replacement player for each positive COVID-19 case that props up on its roster. And any replacement players who are signed, they won't count toward the team's yearly salary and won't count to its potential luxury tax. But, it's almost becoming numbing. It's almost becoming, where you're not surprised anymore. You don't want to cast aspersions on anybody, because I think for the most part these athletes are doing the right things. Especially the ones that are vaccinated. I mean, we've seen some cases like in the NFL that, Antonio Brown just got done with a 3-game suspension for putting out a fake vaccination card. And, how he's avoiding any kind of legal trouble with that, beyond me. But that's for people much smarter and much more powerful for me to decide there. But, you look at these situations, as I said, you're not surprised by this anymore. You're really just, all right, let's adjust. And that's one of the biggest keys of all of this. We talk about life being about adjustments. Well, COVID has really put that at the forefront. What I find ironic in all of this, and what I was planning on coming in to today, being one of my biggest topics to talk about, was of course the news last week that kind of pissed me off, kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and that was that the Nets have, because of COVID, because of the minutes that have built up on their roster and the fact that at times they're playing as many as 4 rookies, 3 that no one even heard of before, like last Wednesday, they've decided to take an about face and are going to allow Kyrie Irving to come back to this team and play in solely road games. And, I was coming in prepared to yell, complain, scream about it, because you remember a month ago, I was glad that they, put him in his place for one time and are not kissing his ass, because that would have, in my mind, disrupted team chemistry if you have a guy that's just parachuting in for every road game, especially when you have a team that, despite their struggle, what has seemed like struggles at times against good teams this year, they are, as we sit here right now, number 1 in the Eastern Conference. But the irony in all of this, and who knows what he was doing in his personal life, that's up for him to do and none of us to really judge. The second that he's announced for a return, within 24 hours, it's announced that he's going on the health and safety protocol list because he tested positive for COVID-19. Talk about irony. Talk about, I don't want to say karma, because I don't, even as much of an ass as he is, I don't wish bad on other people. But it is, kind of ironic. The guy, who has, through all this, kind of acted like a buffoon, kind of acted like a hypocrite. The fact that he says one thing and does another. And he talked about being the voice of the voiceless. And as I've mentioned plenty of times, we haven't heard from him since he had that impromptu Instagram live discussing his decision, discussing his feelings about not taking the vaccination shots and wanting to be the defender, should we say, of those who were losing their jobs because of vaccination status. And what do you know? He has he finally gets a chance to get things the way he wanted them, and he tests positive. But hopefully he's going to be all right. Hopefully Kevin Durant's going to be all right. Hopefully all of these players, you would think all of them are going to be okay. The thing you worry about is those who have some kind of pre-existing medical condition from their past, or, maybe they have a loved one that they've been around since Thanksgiving, and they have some kind of pre-existing medical condition that could be adversely affected. Whatever the case, let's try to make the best of all of this, and let's hope that it does not negatively impact the remainder of these seasons, especially NFL, too severely. Because you would hate, in the case of the NFL, someone's playoff chances or chances at winning a championship to be affected by something that is beyond their control on the field of play. All right, let's get to more pleasant things. Let's get to the actual action on the field. And there's plenty to talk about when it comes to that, whether it comes from, the excitement we saw with some of these prime time games over the last couple of days in the NFL, history being made in the NBA, a big news week for the New York Mets, and the moment that we all expected to happen in the NFL happened a little bit earlier than we thought. So a lot to get to for the next about 45 minutes. Please sit back, relax, put your feet up, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
The media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere, on air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools, redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Let's say, there's more going on in the NFL than just how it's being negatively affected by COVID-19. We're seeing a lot of, games taking place late in the season here that are affecting seeding, that are affecting division races, division titles, and that's what you want. You want a lot of games to matter at the end of the year. You don't want to sit through a lot of crud football where there's, teams, tanking it for playoff position. Hell, you even got teams that you wouldn't think are still in the mix in the thick of things. Like last night, you take, for example, the New Orleans Saints, who outside of, beating up on the Jets, hadn't won a game since losing Jameis Winston. And last night on Sunday Night Football, their defense shows up and, made things difficult for Tom Brady all night long. And what do you know? We sit here, right now, with them as the 7th seed in the NFC playoff standings. Now, a lot of that could and probably will change within the next 24 to 36 hours as Washington and the Eagles both sit here at 6 and 7. Minnesota plays the Bears tonight. They're 6-7. So those teams still are going to have a say in things. And if any one of them wins tonight, they push the Saints out of playoff standing. But last night was very impressive by the Saints defense. The fact that you're without Sean Payton, you're playing with a quarterback that, let's face it, is a good NFL player, but not a good quarterback in Taysom Hill. And they just made things very, very difficult for Tom Brady last night. Cam Jordan seemingly was in the backfield all night long, forcing Tom into a lot of quick throws, even forced Tom to have to use some mobility at times, and that led to him fumbling the football in the second half, just when it looked like the Bucs were finally going to get on the scoreboard. And it led Brady to places that he's never been. His first shutout loss since 2006. The first time he lost to a team by double-digit, to a team that didn't score a touchdown. And it's the first time that he's been swept by a team in a regular season twice. I mean, these kind of things you wouldn't expect. Now, caveat here is that the fact that the Buccaneers were missing a lot of players. They lost Godwin, Evans, and Leonard Fournette as the game went on. But even then, I'm watching this, I'm thinking, at some point, Brady and Gronk are going to figure something out here, trying to squeak past this. But, the Saints defense, you give them a lot of credit. They stood up and were up for the task last night. Now you look at some of the primetime games that went on in the last week. I talked about this last Monday, how we had the potential for the game of the year on Thursday Night Football between the Chiefs and the Chargers. And I think in almost every way it lived up to the billing. You have what most perceive as the most talented quarterback in the sport in Mahomes, all of his weapons available to him, going up against a guy who's quickly making a case for himself to be a top 5 quarterback in the sport in Justin Herbert. And you would have thought that this would have just been a gunslinging contest, these guys throwing the ball all around the yard, but the Chargers, they were able to run the football down the Chiefs' throats for the most part. Have a little bit of a change in the game plan thanks to the fact that the Chiefs were without Chris Jones. And if Jones was in there, I think there would have been a different game plan for the Chargers. They would not have been able to go for $190 on the ground. They wouldn't have been consistently running it up the middle against them. But I thought the Chargers were their own worst enemy. And this has been something I've worried about all year when it comes to them. Because early in the year, Brandon Staley set a tone with how often he was going for it on fourth down. And, early in the year, it was working out. They were, I think they were about 70% on fourth down conversions early in the season. Well, now that's started to come back down to earth in recent weeks. And you look at some of the things that he did. I can almost understand it on the opening drive where you have a 1st and goal and you're trying to set the tone for the evening. Even though there's a lot of people out there that are of the mindset of let's get the 0 off the scoreboard as fast as possible. 1st and goal from the 5, you have 4 cracks at it. That I can understand his thinking there. But then the next one, right before halftime, you've got to make sure you at least get some points on the scoreboard. Go in up by a touchdown. With 3 seconds left, to go for it on 4th down rather than kick a field goal. And it's not just the decision to go for it there. The play he called there, he has Harbaugh drop back to pass. You're running the football down their throat. If you're going to go for it on fourth down, shove it right up the middle or quarterback sneak it. It's not like it's fourth and goal from the 5 or 6 yard line. It's fourth and goal from the 1, maybe even inches. So, and then, they get the bad luck early in the fourth quarter when it looked like Joshua Kelly was going to dive into the end zone to put them up by a touchdown. He fumbles as he's going into the end zone and loses possession of the ball. And the problem became for them that their defense ran out of gas based off the fact that the Chiefs, essentially went no huddle from there. You look at the fact that 3 of their final 4 drives, they scored touchdowns on, and look at each one of those drives. 1 minute 3 seconds, 1 minute 45 seconds, 1 minute 5 seconds. They went up and down the field like that against this Chargers defense to now take a season split in their series and take a what looks like commanding 2-game lead in the AFC West and put themselves in the number 1 spot in the AFC. No, I don't think they're completely back to what they once were, but they're getting there. They are definitely getting there. Their defense, especially when they get Chris Jones back, has been ferocious for the last month. And, right now, as things sit, the AFC postseason would run through Kansas City. It's funny to think about. 2 months ago, we were actually asking the question, are they going to even make the postseason? Well, now they've ran off 7 in a row and look like the best team in the AFC. And especially after what happened on Saturday night as the Patriots winning streak came to an end, losing in Indy in the fashion that they did. Now, Indy was able to work their way around what was an awful night for Carson Wentz. I'm sure their game plan going in was not, let's only have Carson throw the ball 12 times. But, to say he was mediocre would have been very kind, would have been not telling the full story. He was missing guys left and right, and has to be thanking the gods the fact that he has a all-world running back, a top 5 MVP candidate in Jonathan Taylor, having what looks to be a historic type season to carry the way. That and the fact that his defense made things very difficult for Mac Jones early on, causing Mac to have interceptions on 2 out of 3 drives spanning the second into the third quarter. Now, he would start to get things going a little bit because you're down by 3 touchdowns. You got to throw your way back into it. You're not going to be able to run the ball and dink and dunk it. You got to get chunk plays. But the death knell for them, of course, was right at the 2-minute warning, the 69-yard touchdown run for Jonathan Taylor. Now, putting the Colts in an interesting spot here because they are at 8-6. You wouldn't expect them to be with how inconsistent Wentz has been this year. But now they're just a game behind the Tennessee Titans for the division. The Titans who... the Titans are a team that I want to get behind. I want to believe, but they keep just, kicking themselves between the legs each and every single week with these turnovers. Like, what is this, like the I don't know, 4th or 5th time in the last 6 weeks that they've had 4 turnovers in a game? Yesterday, they have a 10-point lead at halftime against a Steelers team that seemingly thinks that there's only one half of football. And you look at they averaged 20 points a game this year, and 13 of them come in the second half of games. And the Titans 10-point lead, start turning the football over left and right. You get the fumble by Sutton in the third, and then back-to-back turnovers by Tannehill, throwing the interception at midfield, and then fumbling on the sack by J.J. Watt. All of those turnovers resulted in field goal drives by the Steelers, to carry the way for what was another less than impressive performance by Ben Roethlisberger. But, the Titans only have so much time to lick their wounds and prepare for the next game. They play the 49ers on Thursday night. The 49ers who, I think we got to start taking them seriously. I think we got to start believing in this team. That they've won 5 out of their last 6 games. Garoppolo's not making a lot of mistakes. There's been no signs of Trey Lance whatsoever. And they have the most versatile player in the sport right now in Deebo Samuel, who, you're not sure what he is. Is he a running back? Is he a wide receiver? All he is, he's a guy that can play football and, can do so many things to positively impact your team. You want him to come out of the backfield and run it up the gut? Fine. You want him to line up out wide, line up in the slot? He'll do that as well and give you a great chance at winning. Now, add that to the fact that they have a pretty good defense that made life difficult for Matt Ryan yesterday, especially one Mr. Nick Bosa, and they are definitely a team that you have to contend with going down the stretch here. Do I think that they're going to go deep in the playoffs? No. But I definitely think that I don't know if there's enough time for them to catch the Cardinals when it comes to the NFC West. Even with the Cardinals struggling against the Lions yesterday, they still have a 2-game lead with 3 games left to go. But the 49ers are a team that definitely needs to be taken seriously, definitely needs to be shown some respect. The Bills put themselves also in good position yesterday with a dominant win over the Panthers. The Panthers who, they clearly don't have a quarterback on that team. The Cam Newton story was fun. It was cute for a couple minutes there, but I think we've seen, the best of that come and go. Still wasn't, an all-around perfect day for Josh Allen, but they've gotten things, straightened out after back-to-back losses, and now they have a chance to go do what was done to them last or 2 weeks ago, and that's go up to New England and handle business against the Patriots. They're 1 game back of the Pats with 3 games left to go. The division is clearly still in their sights, and set themselves up for not having to play a road game in Wild Card Weekend. A team that's just hoping to make Wild Card Weekend right now, though, is the Baltimore Ravens, who were without Lamar yesterday, with still dealing with the ankle issue, and they started Tyler Huntley, who the good thing about playing Huntley is that you don't have to change up the offense for him. That's always been the key with Baltimore, is making sure that your backup is somebody that, Lamar goes down, you can put this guy in there, and the offense remains the same. You be a run-first, run-centric type team. And while he's not as electrifying or as amazing as Lamar Jackson, he'll make the safe, the common plays for you that are needed to remain competitive and give you a chance to win. Now, yesterday he would do something that Lamar's never even done and have 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. And his running was a key in getting them back from a 14-point deficit in the fourth quarter. The problem here is Jon Harbaugh must be drinking whatever kind of egotistical, egocentric, egomaniacal, crazy stuff that his brother Jim usually drinks. Because I, for the life of me, cannot figure out the over-the-top obsession that he has had in recent weeks for going for 2-point conversions late in games to try and just be, look what I can do here. A couple of weeks ago, I was almost on his side when it came to what they tried against the Steelers, because I looked at it and said, all right, most of the complaints are coming from the fact that it didn't work, that TJ Watt made a great play, forced Lamar to throw the ball earlier than he thought, and Mark Andrews had to turn around quicker than he was expecting for the football. A play that they've probably run and successfully completed 1,000,000 times in practice. But yesterday, to me, it's like, wait a minute. You've got all the momentum on your side. You were down by 14 early in the fourth quarter. You've started to put the pressure on the Packers defense. Why not just kick the extra point? I mean, it's Justin Tucker, for God's sakes. It's not like you're running some scrub out there. It's not like you're in the position that the Panthers were in, where they lose their kicker during pregame warm-ups, and you're having to have guys go out there and try out for kicking the football. You have one of the legitimately great kickers in the history of this sport, and you're not taking advantage of that strength, of that advantage that you have over your opposition. It made no sense to me. Plus, you force overtime there. You go there and, say it gets to the position that it's, next team that scores wins. Let's not act like Mason Crosby has been automatic this year. Let's not act like he's been, the second coming of Adam Vinatieri this year, or been what Justin Tucker has been. It's been, cringeworthy at times watching Mason Crosby make some of these late clutch time kicks. And everyone knew on that play that you were going to go to Mark Andrews. I mean, that if Hundley had a little more awareness, maybe he would have just taken off and run with the football himself there. Now, with this loss, you put it in a spot where, with the Bengals winning in Denver, they sit there as the top spot in the AFC North. And if the playoffs began today, you'd be sitting at home watching it just like the rest of us. So, John, wake the hell up and stop with these 2-point conversions, please, for the love of God, especially when the game's on the line. I mean, it's not like you were down by 2. Jeez. I don't know why I'm so aggravated by that, but no, I've always been a big believer in common sense, and that was not common sense. Gonna take another break here, come back and turn my attention to what was a big week for the Mets and another historic moment in college football. Continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
The media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere. On air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting with locations up and down the East Coast from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools. Redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Now, it should come as no surprise to any of us the decision that the Mets made last week. I think the writing was on the wall. You saw reports everywhere about what was Max Scherzer's preference, what was Mets owner Steve Cohen's preference, even though he was going to leave it up to general manager Billy Epler. But as we expected for some time, on Saturday afternoon, Steve Cohen tweeted out announcing that Buck Showalter has been hired as the new manager of the New York Mets. And listen, I have been highly critical of Buck Showalter over his managerial career, and I think rightfully so, because it feels like there has been this over-the-top ass-kissing contest from the media, certain members in particular more so than others, toward Buck Showalter, hailing him as a not just good but great manager, talking about him as the most prepared manager in the game, and not willing to bring up any of his faults, not willing to criticize or critique any of the things that he has done over his career, making it almost seem like he's a flawless manager. No, I've said long before that I don't believe that the Yankees dynasty would have happened in the late 90s if he had stayed. Now, if you want to give him credit for being part in building up the franchise, I can't disagree with you there, because they needed a placeholder at the time. They needed someone that wasn't going to just embarrass the organization after what a crap show it was in the late 80s through 90 and 91. He got them to a level of respectability before Joe Torre ultimately took over and took them where they needed to be. There were things that Torre did that I don't think Buck would have done. Torre was a strong, calming presence and was always capable of standing up to George Steinbrenner. Buck, it always seemed like he was on the seat of his pants, and part of his firing at the end of 95 was because he couldn't stand up to George, and George wanting him to change up his coaching staff. Add in the fact that these are things that we can't answer. We don't know the answers to them, but who knows if Buck would have moved Mariano to the bullpen permanently. Joe Torre had Willie Randolph on his coaching staff, which turned out to be a big key, because in 96 in spring training, people forget, Jeter sucked in spring training that year. There was talks of trading for a veteran shortstop until, at a meeting at the end of spring training, Willie Randolph stood up, pounding on the table, saying, we were going to give this kid a chance. Let's stick to it. And who knows, if he doesn't do that, either Mo, Pettit, or Posada could have been ended up traded for a veteran shortstop. And as we know, all of this would not have happened without all of them in the mix there. I mean, Buck has been good at being the guy that's the table setter before the guy that ultimately either wins big or comes close, in the case of Ron Washington, to taking the team fully to the promised land. But there's no doubt that he's been a very good manager in his career. He has a winning track record as far as overall managerial record. He's been a 3-time manager of the year. Some of that may be due to the media kissing his ass, but he's going to add something to that Mets team that they have not had, and that's a guy that will not put up with BS. Now, they've gotten rid of some of the guys in the locker room that I think were more about themselves and more about, wanting to make this just a party like it was in the late 80s. Guys like Noah Syndergaard, personalities like that. But there's still some guys here like Lindor. Who knows about the status of Baez? Robinson Cano coming back. Guys that there's a little too much sauce when it comes to them, and at times not enough professionalism. And Buck's going to force professionalism down this group's throat. It's not going to be about stupid gimmicks or stupid nicknames when it comes to them. Now, who knows if it's still got to work its way out on the field, but I can promise you this. This I will give him. It will not be the embarrassment and crap show that it's been in the last several years. Buck will not stand for that. He will not allow these guys to just run amok and have them be as unprofessional as they've been in recent years. Now, what was very surprising is the news in college football that came down last week. And I don't pay attention to recruiting a lot, because what does it really mean in the end? We can talk about these schools having these stacked classes coming in all we want. It's still got to play its way out on the field. But last week was definitely maybe not a precedent-setting moment for college football, but definitely a moment to feel good about things. Definitely a moment where you look at it and say, Deion's doing big-time things there at Jackson State, as he was able to get the number 1 recruit in the nation, Travis Hunter, to decommit his original plan to go to Deion's alma mater, Florida State, and choose Jackson State, which, you realize how big that is? To get the top recruit in the country to go from being at one of the top programs in the ACC to commit to an HBCU. Now, we have seen legendary players in the NFL come out of HBCUs. Walter Payton went to Jackson State. Jerry Rice, Missouri Valley State. Steve McNair went to Alcorn State. Art Shell went to Maryland State. Michael Strahan, Texas Southern. Shannon Sharp, Savannah State, just to name a few there. They're big-time players. So it's not, it's not like, this is the first time ever this is happening. But for Deion to get a top recruit like that to decommit from his alma mater and come to his school, it's showing that this is not just, Deion trying to set himself up for his next job, set himself up to make the jump from 1AA into a Power 5 conference school. No, this is showing me that Deion plans to be there for the long term. And, he's bringing in a kid that is a two-way player, a lot like himself. He was one of the top corners in the nation, but also just put up ridiculous video game-like numbers as a wide receiver. We've seen some of the highlights of this kid in the last couple of days, including the catch he made in Collins Hill Prep's game in the state finals. But you look at it, 9 games, 76 completions, over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. The kid is a very impressive athlete, and hopefully this leads to some more of Jackson State's games being on television. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to set a precedent, where you start seeing all the top 10 recruits in the nation start going to HBCUs. But hopefully it starts, making some kids aware, bringing up that, you don't have to always go to Alabama, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, any of the big-time programs to make it big. Especially now with the new rules as far as kids and sponsors. I mean, it's a win-win no matter where you go, as long as you can play. And I'm getting tired of all of these coaches who are coming out whining, complaining about this. The only reason, the likes of Dabo Swinney are now bringing up saying that, it's bad for recruiting is because you were not able to land the player. If Travis Hunter had went to your school, we would have never heard one peep out of your mouth. So please, shut up and go away. Someone who I don't ever want to see go away is Steph Curry. Steph Curry, who it finally happened. It was great to see it last Tuesday night, becoming the NBA's all-time leader in career three-pointers. We knew it was going to happen some point soon, but for it to happen in what is still referred to as the Mecca of basketball for some reason at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks was very sweet to see. A, because it happened in our local market. B, because it continued to shove down Knicks fans' throats that this guy was drafted one pick before they were able to select him. And C, the fact that he got to do it again in front of two legends that set the groundwork in front of him in Reggie Miller and Ray Allen. But Steph has taken what they've done to a whole nother level because, Ray Allen, he set the record in 1,300 games. Steph did this in less than 800. You think about Steph Curry and the impact that he's going to have on a generation of basketball fans. Because back in the late 80s into the mid 90s, there was the marketing campaign of, be like Mike. Remember the shoe commercials, the Wheaties box commercials that came out with the song saying, I want to be like Mike. Well, now you have a generation of kids that want to be like Steph. He's more influential, I think, on the upcoming generation than even LeBron James. Because as great as LeBron is, and LeBron will go down when it's all said and done as historically greater than Steph Curry, unless Steph, either matches him or wins one more title than he does. You look at LeBron, and that's a physical anomaly. There's not a lot of people on the face of this earth walking around looking like LeBron James that can just jump out of the building like he can. People look at Steph Curry, kids look at Steph Curry and they say, I could do that. They go outside, go to their park, go to the basketball hoop, in their driveway, shoot 1,000,000 threes for hours. And, that influences kids to want to reach the NBA, want to be the next Steph Curry, want to be that guy, that 20 years from now, maybe we're talking about them being on a historic pace as far as shooting the three-pointers. Now, Steph is, 32 years old? And you would think as long as the ankle issues that he had early in his career don't prop up again, he's got at least another 6-7 years of playing in front of him. So he's going to easily pass the 3,000 mark at some point. And I got to wonder if this is, we talk about all records are made to be broken. I got to wonder, is this a record that is going to be able to just stand the test of time where no one ever reaches it, because it's not like he's retiring tomorrow, people. He's still going and going at an incredibly high level. And now that this record is behind him, he could take a deep breath, just go out there and play basketball, and do it at a time where the Warriors are a half game back of the Suns for the number one spot in the West. And we're talking about, the first week of January? His Splash Brother teammate, Klay Thompson, is on the way back. The Warriors are set to get even better. And that's a scary proposition for not just the Western Conference, but the rest of the NBA. A Western Conference that you thought, that some people I thought was going to be dominated by the Lakers, but they're dealing with their own issues right now. I mean, you look at it, Anthony Davis is now going to miss a month with a sprained MCL. And, I'm not going to get on him too much because that was just flukish. In the past, you wondered if Anthony Davis was in the best of shape. Not to make him out to be this overweight guy like Zion Williamson is, but you wondered if he really trained as hard as he should. Friday night, a defender just fell into his leg and he hyperextended his knee. That was flukish at best. But now you're looking at a situation where for the next month, LeBron, Westbrook, and Carmelo are going to have to carry the way for the Lakers, especially at the time they're without Anthony Davis with injury. And they've got 6 players in COVID protocol, including Dwight Howard, THT, and Avery Bradley. So, the Lakers, they sit here, they're 16 and 15, 7th in the West, and you really can't get a good read on them. The one thing that I think you can tell is that they have too much age on this team, and not all of the pieces truly fit together, because they should not be losing to teams like the Kings. They should not be going and losing to teams like the Thunder. We should not be sitting here on the 20th day of December wondering, are they even going to make the playoffs, or are they going to be in that play-in scenario just like they were last year? All right, going to take one last break, come back, and finish things up for this week in Keeping It Sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
The media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere. On air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools, redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
A few more minutes here, but let's finish things up for this week in Keeping It Sports with M3. Now, we knew this moment was coming. We knew that this was going to happen. We just didn't expect it to happen so soon. And that was last Thursday, when in the middle of the night, the Jacksonville Jaguars owner Shad Khan would fire head coach Urban Meyer. Now, and let's face it, if you didn't see this one coming, I don't know what to tell you, because you look at all of the events that had transpired there. Shad Khan was pretty much the only person up until last Wednesday that did not have a problem with Urban Meyer. You want to talk about the players, coaching staff, people that worked around the team. Everybody in that building seemingly hated Urban Meyer's guts. Hell, even Trevor Lawrence had turned on Meyer because of the fact that he was annoyed the fact that they're not playing running back James Robinson, which I don't understand why you wouldn't be. He was your best option out of the backfield. But, I mean, you look at the timeline here. Last January, he gets hired as the head coach of the Jaguars when there were clearly more deserving NFL caliber coaching options available, such as Eric Bieniemy and Jim Caldwell. Then on February 12th, the embarrassment would begin, where, remember, the assistant on his coaching staff would resign because of bullying and racist allegations that he had against him when working at, I believe it was Iowa in college when he was the strength and conditioning coach there. Then 3 months passed. You didn't hear much from the Jaguars until Urban thought it would be a good idea to sign Tim Tebow to play tight end. And what do you know? That lasted all of about 2 weeks into August. One embarrassing preseason game of bloopers of him screwing up against third and fourth stringers before they cut cord. Then he made the big no-no, the big boo-boo on August 31st when he said vaccination statuses were considered in roster cuts, something that is not legal to do in the NFL and that the Players Association were up in arms about. Then we advance another month to where the beginning of the end occurred for Urban Meyer when, after a Thursday night football game against the Cincinnati Bengals, rather than fly back with the team, he would go to his bar in Ohio and get what we all view as a lap dance by a girl who was young enough to be his daughter. And then this month, the last 10 days came out embarrassing report after embarrassing report, whether it be him questioning the credibility of all of his assistant coaches and calling them losers, or last Wednesday when his former kicker, Josh Lambo, came out and said that Meyer had kicked him during a practice. Kicking a player. Can you imagine if it wasn't a kicker, if it was someone that was locked in on a guaranteed contract that he did that to, and how they would have reacted? I mean, that's over the line. That's ridiculous. And Shad Khan had previously said that he wasn't going to just jump the gun and react to this. But once that report came out, he had no choice but to fire Urban Meyer. And, now hopefully the Jaguars will hire a real head coach, not a celebrity head coach. Someone that has NFL experience. I mean, when are we going to start to realize that Jimmy Johnson was the exception, not the rule, as far as head coaches that have success in the college head coaches, that have success in the NFL? And if it didn't work out for Nick Saban, it wasn't going to work out for anybody else. And Urban Meyer is no exception. So now, after some time passes, he can go back to whatever cushy television job he had at either ESPN or Fox, one of those two. And, try to self-heal himself, and then maybe he'll get another crack at the gun as a college football head coach. Now, his firing didn't do anything to inspire the Jaguars, as they would get beat up by the Texans yesterday. But hey, maybe it's what they wanted, because thanks to their loss and the Lions winning against the Cardinals, they are now in the number 1 draft position heading into the 2022 NFL draft. Though, who knows, before all is said and done, one of our local teams could be sitting in that spot, because the Jaguars come to MetLife to play the Jets next week. I'm not even sure if I'm going to go to that game or not, because of some personal reasons, or some reasons because the fact that this game could be a total eyesore. This is one of those games coming up that I talk about all the time that could set the NFL back 10 to 15 years. When you have the Jets and the Jaguars wasting everybody's time at 1 p.m. this coming Sunday, the day after Christmas, when I could be sitting home playing my brand new PlayStation 5. But because I'm a sucker, because I am too loyal to this team, I may end up going. I mean, yesterday, the Jets get off to a good start. They're up 10-0 after one quarter, up 17 to 10 at halftime, and seemingly gave up after that. They had no offense in the second half, had a total of 54 yards in the second half, which, as I was talking to my friend Tom here about that, you trip over yourself in this league getting 54 yards in just a drive. They got 54 yards only in a half. The only scoring they had was the pick 6 by Bryce Hall in the fourth quarter. Other than that, their offense was non-existent. I mean, Zach Wilson, yesterday was the first time I got annoyed at this kid all year long, because it was the first time he looked truly healthy since he came back from injury. He, had a good first half of this game, but he's got to play a full 60 minutes of football here. And I know there were a lot of drop passes along the way, but you're going up against a Miami Dolphins team where Tua Tagovailoa is trying to get picked off left and right, and Duke Johnson is running like his hair is on fire because he was pissed off that he was sitting at home rather than being on an NFL roster somewhere. I mean, this Jets team, the 7th time in 14 games they have given up 30 points. They have a defensive-minded head coach, and they have the worst defense in the sport. And then to hear the kid, Wilson, after the game come out and say, "Oh, it's not a concern of mine. I'm not worried about that." When asked that, how the other 3 quarterbacks, White, Johnson, and Flacco have played better with this offense than he has. I mean, it's mind-boggling. The only thing that saves them from being an even more of a crap show is the fact that they are in the same building as the New York Giants. Although you wouldn't have realized that yesterday, considering MetLife Stadium was, 75 to 80% Cowboy fans loading up the building. I know because my buddy Jeff was live streaming it on Facebook, showing how it was basically a Cowboys home game. And, once again, what is the point of starting Mike Glennon? What do you gain out of starting Mike Glennon? He turned the football over 4 times yesterday. Now, I know he got unlucky and there was the tip. He gets picked off by DeMarcus Lawrence. But then he fumbles right before halftime, preventing them from scoring. And then just when you think that, maybe they're going to get back in it in the fourth quarter, they're down 21-6. Dallas is not doing really anything that impressive offensively. They've been winning it on defense the last couple of weeks. They get a fumble by Dak, giving them the football deep in Cowboys territory. And on the first play, he throws a pick in the end zone to Trevon Diggs. Diggs' 10th interception of the season. What was gained out of Glennon playing? They eventually, after that turnover, finally put Jake Fromm in. But you should have been playing Fromm from the beginning, because even if you get your ass kicked, at least you see something from this kid. With Daniel Jones out, it should be And the fact that now you're eliminated from postseason contention, it should be about learning about the future. Even though, let's face it, who's going to be here in the future? Gettleman in all likelihood is going to retire after the season. And Joe Judge, he can cliche all he wants. He could talk about how he saw so many good things on film out there and really appreciates the guy's effort. The Maras, they've got to take a look at themselves in the mirror here, because they keep getting sold a false bill of goods by these used car salesmen when it comes to head coaches. And I don't care if it's the third time in a row where you'd be firing a guy after 2 years. This guy's got to go. He's awful. He's terrible. He's in over his head. He has no idea what the hell he's doing. Somewhere along the line, Steve Tisch and the Tisch family have got to step in and say, what am I paying for here? I know, John, you control most of the day-to-day operations, but I've still got a play in this, a pretty big, sizable play in this as well. And you're just screwing the thing up. Maybe take a step back and let me have a choice for a change. And stop with this, let's hire someone because they have giant roots, whether it be with the general manager job or the head coaching job, because clearly the last 3 times you've done that, it has not worked out well for you in the end. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 from Monday, December 20th, 2021. Everyone have a great night. Have a safe, happy holiday season. Everyone, please be healthy. Stay safe with your loved ones this week for Christmas and all of the holiday festivities. And hopefully I'll talk to you guys again, same time next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody.
I have had enough of you.
Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.